heading you've given, and I'm not going to repeat the heading. I would only say that one of the most important part of your ESG activities are, of course, the reduction in the carbon footprint, and the team here is going to be addressing this topic. What is important is that there are some amount of diverse opinions within the group, and it is very important to listen to this diverse opinion, of course, because if all of us say yeah, it doesn't help, yeah? So, and when it comes to the diverse opinion, of course, I'll highlight the diverse opinion piece. Having said that, Anup is going to start giving the point of view. What is important about Anup is that he is not from a classical facility management, if I can say that, background. He's done business, and then he's come into this, he's also handling facilities. Why that becomes important is that he'll give a view which will be nice and broad and not just restricted to the real estate piece, yeah? So Anup, over to you, and can you please start?
This is a challenging session, and I think one of the most important panel discussions because it talks about moving towards greener future. Challenging and difficult because it is a post-lunch session. And I continue with Sunil Ralph's practice of also engaging the audience with some rapid fire, which he could not do. So some questions for the audience. We'll make it a little interactive if Madam Sangeeta permits. Okay. So the question for the audience is, and I will lead you towards greener future. India gets more than 50% electricity from? Coal. Fantastic. The answer is coal. Yeah? Okay, good. Dash is the world's third largest greenhouse gas emitting country. Absolutely. So I think the audience has had good lunch, but they are still active too. Yeah? Very nice. Okay. I think this is a difficult one, but looking at the responses, the audience should answer this. The full form of COP. Fantastic. I think a round of applause for him. So we'll talk about conference of the parties later. And then, of course, a simple one to end, SDG. Full form of SDG. Fantastic. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I have woken up you. Okay. I start off with Mahatma Gandhi's quote saying that the world has enough of everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed. Right? I think it's a very thought-provoking proverb which each and every one of us sitting out here has to imbibe in us, because the panel talks about moving towards greener future. It is our responsibility as corporate leaders. It is our responsibilities from the political leadership to the academia to the civil society, and being an active, participative citizen to help the country manage the limited resources which we have. Now look at some live example what's happening in India. You take the example of Joshimath case of Uttarakhand 2023. You are aware of the disaster there, Joshimath? We are all aware or not? Okay. I am sure we are all aware of what are the causes of that disaster, right? There is this business world team which has come from Delhi, and there are many others who would have come from other parts of India also. Look at the current temperatures in Delhi now. We are sitting in Mumbai. It is almost end of June. Are we receiving enough rainfall? No. All these are points to ponder for all of us. I think as citizens, we owe a lot towards the Mother Earth. We owe a lot towards our children and grandchildren. What decisions we make today will shape the future of the country and the world. Believe me, we have to make a start. When do we do it? We do not want to do it one day, but we want to do it right from day one. These were my opening comments. I'm sure towards the course of these discussions, we'll speak a little more on SDG and COP. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Anup. And thanks for bringing out the macro topic. Naveen has a very strong view on carbon specific. While Anup spoke about the bigger picture, about all the environment changes, etc., which were happening and gave examples of that, Naveen has a very, very strong view on the carbon trend, etc., which is going on. So I'd like to pass it on to you, Naveen.
Thank you, Sangeeta. Good afternoon to all. To set the context, let me spell it out few of the data points. Globally, if you see, nearly 50 billion metric tons of greenhouse gases are being emitted per year. If you break it into continent-wise, Asia, somewhere around 50% plus is contributing for this emission. And at the same time, if you take up North America and the Europe, it is somewhere around 35%. And the rest of the continents, it's only balanced 15% who are contributing for this, but still they are bearing the brunt. Now, coming to the top three countries which are contributing for this emission, you can take China. China is contributing somewhere around 25% out of this total lot. Then next comes is USA, which is somewhere around 15%, and then the EU, which is 10%. If we break it into sectors, which all sectors are really contributing for this greenhouse gas emission, that is power and energy, if you take it, somewhere around nearly 80% is what this industry, this sector itself is contributing. And then somewhere around 18%, you can think about the forestry, the agriculture, the livestock. These are the sectors which are contributing for somewhere around 18% for the emission. And finally, coming to the waste land, that is the landfills which we are doing and the wastewater which we are creating, that is somewhere around 2 to 3% of the total emission. So this as a backdrop, I would like to state that there are few countries which are thinking in lines how they can control this emission norms. So they have come up with two different strategies. One is called as carbon tax. So this is applicable in many European, many African, and even in Asian and American countries. So what they've done is this carbon tax. So when a manufacturer is manufacturing the goods and services, whatever is being manufactured, if it does have an element of the greenhouse gas emission, definitely he has to bear a tax for it, which is aside the normal taxation which is being paid by him for delivering the goods and services. So this is one bit which couple of countries have done. Aside that, if you look at, there is one more strategy which they have come up with, that is called the emission trading system. So when a manufacturer manufactures, that time itself, the government and the manufacturer, they come to an understanding that this is the maximum cap which a company can emit. But on top of it, there is one more thing which they are calling as trading. So in case if there is a dire need for a manufacturer to meet some of the exigencies, he can apply for it, but definitely that is at an exorbitant cost. So this, if you see in the world, there is 26% of the total emission which is happening, the greenhouse gases emission which is happening. You call it carbon dioxide, the methane, the nitrous oxide. All these things is getting controlled, but it is only control which is happening. Thank you.
Thanks, Naveen. Naveen gave you the outside India picture, but I said that there were diverse views in this group. So here you're going to hear a complete, so right now the message to you was, hey, the sky is falling, what can we do to save the chicken, yeah? Now we'll get a different view out here, and Navinder will give you a very different view and a very real view nevertheless. So Navinder, over to you, please.
Thank you. Before I start with my view, following Anup, I think I also have a quote to start with, and this is a very dear quote from David Attenborough's series. If you haven't watched them, please watch them on Netflix. The name is Our Planet. There's 6 episodes. It will change your life. So the quotation is, we are the first generation to know that we are destroying our planet, and the last one who can do anything about it. That's right. So having said that, see, what's happened is, The problem between what is being propagated as the environmental concerns or ESG norms by the West and what consciousness India already comes with is the point of, not a conflict, but it is a point of debate and a point where two mindsets have to meet. When I say this, if you all are aware about our traditional past, about history of our nation. We have always been a sustainable country. If you look back into our old Vedas, we have a very clear evidence of following a sustainable path. And that alone had made us reach the highest level of consciousness as a country, as a nation. However, the West civilization developed, the colonial mindset developed, they started creating markets, and they started creating something called economies of scale for those markets. Now, to produce those economies of scale, you have to produce that raw material required for the market. And that raw material comes from where? From the earth. So this was the root cause where things probably started as per my understanding and research. Whereas India was already into an era where it was using those natural products in a very conscious way, recycling them, sustaining them, and having a very vibrant economy, maybe not in terms of the products or something, but if you look back, there are instances which say India's GDP was highest than most nations in the world at one time. So now what has happened is, we have followed the Western path, we have started industrialization, and in that industrialization, we have not adhered to any of those older principles or rules, we should say. Now, where the ESG adoption in India is going to become a challenge is, firstly, the economic development and industrial development in India is a different aspect altogether. We have to take into mind the balanced growth and sustainability, both growth and sustainability. Because if you are growing, India is growing much later than other countries, other Western countries. What happens is, when other countries have reached a point of developed level, they are now trying to tell us, okay, you have to now follow those ESG norms or sustainability norms. But what happens to our own growth? What happens to our own population? We have to balance that along with the development. In that, we have some environmental challenges also. We have diverse ecosystems. We have deserts, mountains, plateaus, riverine areas, forested areas. So we have to have separate norms. We have our own natural products coming from all these places. The Western countries rely mostly on natural products coming from outside. Whereas we are growing our own natural products, we have different ecosystems, we have to take care of that. Similarly, now we talk of water scarcity. This water scarcity has to be understood at our own national level to plan an ESG formula for our nation. There are regulatory and institutional challenges also. Each state has got its own regulatory problems. Somewhere the air pollution norms are higher. Somewhere the textile pollution is higher. All those states have got different norms. So you have to have a centralized way of calculating the ESG scores. That becomes a challenge, especially when you talk about scope 3 emissions, where you are talking about supply chain. And if the supply chain comes from 3-4 different states, calculating the ESG norms for that is going to be a challenge. We have technological and infrastructure needs also. That itself has a big technological adoption challenge. The infrastructure challenges you understand very well. We have various challenges as we go towards the rural areas. One more challenge we have is, whereas in the Western world, the development has been outside in. That means they have developed their economies first and then developed their communities and other things later. Whereas India has always developed inside out. It's like teaching somebody who already knows the basics and you're teaching them different language, different techniques. That needs to be understood very well in the whole line. So to me, ESG coming into India or any environmental norms coming into India are not bad. At least they create awareness. However, they have to be understood in the context of our own country's core, the persona, the core structure, and then implemented in a better way. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Navin. Thanks, Navindra. And Navindra has brought in the India aspect and brought in the uniqueness of India in the whole discussion. Yeah, so while there is a lot of noise in the west part of the world, and even in some of the east part of the world, it does not mean that we can just take their problems and say the problems apply to India. Yeah, but the point is, does the problem apply to India in whatever way? Yeah. So what we're talking about carbon reduction, and what is one of the greatest guzzlers of carbon? Yeah, the HVAC systems are one of the greatest guzzlers of carbon, along with, of course, others. So here we are going to hear Bagath a little bit on how his HVAC system is going to be trying to solve the problem for us. Over to you, Bagath.
Yeah. Thank you, Sangeeta. Yeah, you said it already. I don't know how many of us know, in any commercial building or any building for that matter, which is air conditioned, right? So that building's biggest power will be from HVAC, right, amongst all. It could be it could be a hotel, it could be an airport, it could be anything, right? So whatever may be the usage, the biggest power, just for some numbers, it will be anywhere between 40 to 50% of the total building, power. That will be consumed by the HVAC system. So it's very critical and important that the HVAC system installed in any premises are designed properly for two reasons. One is for the benefit of the customer, it should not consume more power, right? It directly affects them in their electricity bill. And in the larger context, the more the electricity consumed, in one of the question was, which is the biggest source of power for India is coal, right? So the more the electricity is consumed, we are indirectly consuming more coal, which is directly going to lead into higher carbon footprint. It is a very, very simple mathematics. So in HVAC system, I think the whole industry is going through a lot of transformation in the last probably a decade or so. Many new technologies are being adopted very successfully. To make it simple, today we are talking about power reduction of anywhere between 20 to 30%. Okay, what it was probably even 5 years back. That's the pace at which the development is happening, technology is improving. So as an industry, I think we are doing well. I think ably supported by the government. They are again coming up with a lot of regulations. So I think even, you may be seeing this STAR label, in your equipments, whatever we purchase, being a washing machine or a refrigerator, there is a STAR label. The STAR label is nothing but the indication of the efficiency. The highest star is about 5 and the minimum is 1. So the 5-star will have the more efficient machine. So they are trying to adopt this to the entire HVAC system. So that's a lot of efforts are being put. I think we are all, meeting and engaging with the government very frequently. And as an industry, I think a lot of technologies have come. I think we are heading in the right direction. I think we'll be well equipped to meet the net zero target, which was agreed by our PM. As an industry, I think a lot of technology adoption has taken place, and I think the end users also, I think without their acceptance and participation, it cannot happen, because a 20 or 30% lower power consuming machine will definitely have a higher capex, right? So that is well understood by the the end users, right? And so we don't find here and there, there may be some restriction, but overall, I think customers are preferring high efficiency machines, and that is again encouraging us to come up with more and more technology. I think so. I think we are, as far as our industry is concerned, being the largest power consuming industry, I think we are reasonably confident that we'll be able to, reach that whatever, decarbonization goals the country and the overall world has. Thank you.
Thanks, Bagath. So having heard again at a central level, I'm now going to be requesting Amar to speak specifically. And we know that Tata does a lot of work in this area, but Amar can share what his company does specifically in this area of carbon reduction. Amar, over to you.
Thank you, Sangeeta. Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, thank you, Mohit and Savi, for inviting me again. I was there for the first edition of this program in Delhi on the 6th of February. So thanks for that. And while my esteemed panelists spoke more at the global level, I would want to kind of present a case study. I am working for Tata Consultancy Services, TCS, for the last 27 years. And I think we started very actively measuring this whole thing about net zero and carbon neutrality from 2016. So all the numbers that I will quote will be on a base of 2016. So our journey towards a greener future is based on 4 pillars. First is carbon footprint mitigation. Second is water conservation and recycling. Third is waste reduction and recycling. And fourth is conserving biodiversity. So under the carbon footprint mitigation, everything, everything that was spoken here comes under that. So it could mean, I would just, carrying over from where Bagath left HVACs, what we have done practically is we are using VFDs for our chillers, we are using VRFs for our HVACs. Any HVAC system that becomes, let us say, 16, 18, 20 years old, as the experts determine, we replace it, because replacing it will increase the efficiencies for 2 reasons. One is that the latest system will have the new systems that you buy will have the latest technology, which by itself will make it more efficient. And also, as any systems age, the efficiency goes down. So these 2 factors will kick in, and that is the highest load. While we do have things like sensor-based, a lot of people spoke about sensors in the morning, sensor-based lighting in certain corridors, in our parking areas. So as the car proceeds, or as you walk towards the parking for all practical purposes, that's when the lights come on. However, all of us know that the power used by lights is minuscule as compared to what is required by HVACs. So I think the focus continues to remain on these high energy consuming devices. Then of course we heard a lot of groups and individuals talking about moving to EV. So we are also moving our fleets to EVs, both cars, buses, and also a lot of our employees themselves have started buying EVs. So we are providing EV charging stations in our parking lots. So there's a separate lot where EVs would be parked, and you have a 15 ampere charging point there. These are some of the things that we have been doing. And in terms of numbers, we have 38 million square feet of owned space in India, and about 68% of that are green facilities as certified by the IGBC. Then we had a target, I think similar to what Samir said in the morning. We also have a target of net zero by 2030. And in 2016, we also set an intermediate target of 70% net zero by 70% carbon neutrality by 2025, which is approaching March. However, this end of financial year 23-24, that is 31st March 24 itself, we have declared that we are at 80%. So these are some of the numbers and some of the methods, some of the things that we have implemented practically to move towards our net zero target of 2030.
Thanks, Amar. So we heard right now the big picture on what is happening around in India in terms of environment. We heard in terms of the world and what programs were going on. We also heard about the India view, that when we are anyway not getting enough, do we really need to chase a reduction, or do we need to increase first and then do a reduction? These were all various points of view, and we've also seen company implementation on this topic. Yeah, these were all very important points of view. But the point is that we are now doing everything with any action at any point of time is always for the future. So even when actions were taken 10 years back, it was for the future. When actions are being taken today, it's again for the future. Yeah, there is no going away from it. Any tender document, any of these infrastructure tender document you read, the very important paragraph or place out there, the India ones, I'm not even talking about the Europe ones and the US ones, India ones. The very important place out there would be for the sustainability, stamps or solutions that these infrastructure projects would have, where all of these views would be, or will have to be incorporated in that. Knowing this, Navinder, we know we have a problem. We know that we are not yet, your per capita, as you like you say, per capita is not much in terms of carbon consumption. But does it mean that we can sit back and first increase, or do we need to, formulate a solution which will work for India? Over to you.
As you all know, India's per capita is 1.9 metric tons of carbon as compared to 4.8 globally. However, it doesn't mean that we sit back, because our population is large. In terms of the overall volumes, we are definitely contributing to the carbon emissions. And here is where we need to become a leader nation in trying, get things under control. Our solar mission, see, I'll tell you some of the major projects which are on in the country, which need to be brought on the sustainability grid of the country. So the idea is, we as companies or organizations don't have to get trapped in the ESG framework alone. While that framework is helping our organizations to do our bit, but the majority or the fastest results will come in if you directly or indirectly participate in some of the largest projects. And what are some of the largest projects? These largest projects are directly or indirectly improving the biodiversity. See, the ultimate goal is to improve the biodiversity of this planet. That's where the whole problem has arisen. If you do not know, every day, more than 30 species of plants and animals are getting extinct. They will no longer be there. And for any species to become alive again, it takes thousands of years of evolution to then come back to the life cycle. So here is where we are harming our planet. It's nothing else. So when I say major projects, it's the solar mission. So we have to get that solar mission on a grid, and then see where we can draw that much power from it or contribute back power to it. Similarly, we have other projects like we are having a Western Ghats, which are one of the very, very delicate biodiversity zones in the world. We need to protect these Western Ghats from getting further urbanized or further degraded. Thirdly, which I firmly feel, is that our urbanization needs to come to a balance. We cannot start concretizing our villages now, because our villages are the bedrock why our per capita carbon emissions are still lower. Our villages are still following many of the sustainable norms which are there for centuries. If we also, corrupt those villages in a manner with those urbanization trends and other market economy trends, that's not the way forward. So development has to be more sensible, more towards the larger projects. We have examples like Sikkim's organic farm initiative. In Sikkim, 100% of the farming is organic. Now that is some lessons drawn for the other states. Similarly, our Ayurveda and traditional medicine, there are herbs and plants required for that. That must get furtherance, because that will lead to further sustaining the whole economy. Getting the processed foods out of the chain and replacing them with natural foods is one of the initiatives we can go forward. A lot of organic startups, entrepreneurs have come into India. That's the way forward, to support them. So in our organizations, while we are spending, say, 60 to 70% of our budgets into our normal ESG, Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3, we must look out for those, larger projects in our vicinity, where we all collaborate and give that project some impetus, that will result in much better and much faster payback. That's my whole point. Thank you.
Thanks, Navindra. But fact is, Navindra, while that is a very clear opinion and a very macro opinion, I want us to come back to the everyday zindagi. And as they say, boon boon se talab bharta hai. So, Navin, I want us to know what can we do, not at the macro level, but at the our individual level to bring down the carbon consumption program. Over to you.
Yeah. Before I put across those points, what individual can do, I would like to take the cue from what Colonel Navinder has said, that India should lead the sustainability. I think India can do it, but definitely there are already some countries which are far ahead, and we can either ape them or we can check whatever is feasible that we can take it ahead and then move ahead. To quote that example, I think we all know Bhutan. This is a very small Himalayan country. 2009, I think they have announced that they are going carbon neutral. This is part of their national program called Gross Domestic Happiness. So that time, none of the countries were noticing when they were speaking in the COP. That is what I think Anup was mentioning about the COP. But in 2015-16, if you recollect, in the COP 21, I think all the countries, to a greater extent, they have recognized the enormous efforts which this country has taken, by which they became carbon neutral. But the good part is, they didn't stop there. They went ahead, and then now they are calling themselves as carbon negative. What does this mean? This means that they produce nearly 2.2 million metric tons of greenhouse gases, right, per annum. But they are able to take 6 million metric tons. That much of emission they are able to absorb for the world. And at the same time, they are also going for renewable energy. So they are selling the renewable energy to the neighboring countries. Again, they are reducing nearly 6 million metric tons. So I think there is a good amount of example already available in the world, like Bhutan. How they have done is, it is more a democratic way of doing it, but more so there was a commitment from each individual, each citizen, that they have to make their country carbon neutral. They have to move towards carbon negative. They have to give to the world. That is what was their point, and they were committed for it. So their forest, if you look at, it is more than 60% of the land which they occupy right now. It's all forest. They are moving towards energy efficient lights. That is what I think Bagath was speaking about. So I think these were small steps they have taken, but definitely they have now come to a stage where they are calling themselves as carbon negative. So I think that is where I think India should also aim for. Because India is now emitting somewhere around 7% of the total emission of greenhouse gases. So that's where is my point. And now coming to the point, what we can do as an individual, as Sangeeta said, "Boond boond se sagar banta hai," to hum wo boond hai. So I would like to say, I think in the greenhouse emission norms, if you look at, nearly 5% is being emitted by the livestock. So I think if we can reduce the red meat, mainly the beef and the lamb eating, I think that can reduce this 5% to a greater extent, and we can go green as much as possible. That is one. The second thing is that using as much as possible energy efficient equipments like lighting, the lights and the other equipments in the household, I think that will help us. The third point is, I think we all love taking shower bath, but I think we should go ahead and then think about taking a bucket bath, because that will conserve a lot of water. And then we should buy what we require. Because many a times what happens is, we are on a shopping spree. And we go on purchasing even if we don't require. I think somewhere we have to stop that. The reason is there, because in the world right now the emission is somewhere around 2 to 3%. Is only because of the landfills which is happening because of the waste which we are dumping, and also the water bodies which are there, they are getting polluted, and that is again contributing to the emission of the greenhouse gases. So these are all small, steps which we can take it. These are all low-hanging, doables. I'll not call it as fruits. So very much possible by us. We can do it. And more so, I think, transport-wise also, if at all, if you look at, carpooling is one thing which we can look at. And wherever there is an opportunity, if we have to go for a very small distance, we can use the bicycles rather than using our cars. So these are all small things which we can do. And we can show our commitment towards a better future, because we have to hand over a better future for our next generation. Thank you.
I'll quickly add one point. I love that last point by Naveen about the, requiring less. I think that's one very key thing. We are, as Indians, we're always different than the rest of the world. Our needs were very limited in the older culture and in our historical evidence we have. I remember a joke. There was one European traveler who was very intrigued by stories of Indian yogis, and he wanted to come to India and meet a yogi. So he came by a private jet. He was very rich, and he got loads of suitcases and all, and he came to meet the yogi. Yogi was in a small hut, and he had one charpoy and one seat to sit down and some utensils, and that's what it. And when he entered, he said, Yogi ji, I'm very humble to meet you, but I want to know, how can you sustain yourself? How can you live without anything? So the yogi looked at him and said, okay, how have you come with, what all have you got? He says, I've got these 5-6 bags, and they're also less because I'm only traveling. The yogi says, so am I. So the point is, we are all only travelers in this world. This world is only a small journey for all of us. We don't need all the things that we think we need. The problem with the materialistic world is they've created wants into needs. We need to differentiate what our wants are and what our needs are. Thank you.
Thanks, both of you all. Yeah, these guys, all of them jointly with the Bhutan negative and again with Navinder talking, we might land up getting into our, the post-retirement phase, which I am in right now, too soon. So let's come back to our physical comforts, and I'm sure we all need our HVACs, our ACs and all. And Bagath ji, please give us some ideas there on what all can happen so that we can save real money in terms of electricity also, besides the carbon reduction, because saving there will automatically mean carbon reduction. Over to you.
Sure.
Otherwise, they'll make us yogis, yaar.
Before I answer your question, just to take add on to what my friends here said. So it is not now we are talking about carbon neutral, then carbon negative. There are also items of carbon credits, right? Gulf countries, which are producing oil for the world, like Saudi Arabia and many other countries, they contribute a lot for the carbon emissions through their refineries, right? So see how people are thinking nowadays. So especially Saudi. So they can't do anything about it, right? Because it's a refinery, oil has to produce, and then they have to serve the world, right? So today what they are doing is, they are adopting some forests in Africa, right? Because they have money, so they are adopting some forests in Africa, and then they are trying to maintain those forests. Because Africa, many of the African countries are not so rich. Probably they are not able to, maintain those forests. So this countries like, it's not about individuals or companies. The entire country, they are, because they are aware and they are concerned about the, the carbon that is being emitted through the refineries, and then they are trying to compensate by adopting something through some other means, like adopting some forests, and then they get some carbon credits, So that is also being, that is also happening around the world. Just to, answer your question, I think a lot has changed in the HVAC. I've been telling this, to answer your question, like how as an individual I can save power. That's a simple question. So today, earlier in our residences, we used to have, probably 15-20 years back, we used to have a window air conditioner, right? So it was like there was no regulation. It was a very, very old technology. It used to consume a lot of power. Then it migrated to some split air conditioners, right? So we had one indoor, we had one outdoor and all that, right? So for example, in a typical flat or a villa, like you will have a dedicated machine for each of the room, right? Today also, in most of the houses, it is like that, right? Probably each flat or villa will have about 5 to 6 air conditioners. So today, the technology has developed in such a way that you don't have to have a separate air conditioner for each room, right? There are systems, even at, I'm not talking about the bigger, systems, which are very, very energy efficient. Even for a normal residential application, we need not have a separate air conditioner for each room. One air conditioner is available, okay, that can be connected to 4 or 5 rooms, right? There will be only one outdoor unit, okay? You will have 4 or 5 indoor units. One outdoor unit will serve all these 4 or 5 indoor units, right? So the advantage is, like for example, if one room is not occupied, right? So that cooling, okay, will be transferred to the other room which is occupied. So it is not only the power savings, it also serves a customer because his investment is also less. Just to add on, the produce also is less. Instead of producing 5 air conditioners, one air conditioner is produced and that is serving the purpose. So that is a technological development.
So because we've been told multiple times it's time up, so Anup and Amar, I'm just going to skip you all for this reason. Yeah, and I'll say thank you, but don't worry. The entire morning session has been about carbon reduction. You think people do automation just like that? They do automation for carbon reduction. Do you think they do sustainability just like that? They do sustainability for carbon reduction. So our topic has effectively been covered by every panel before us. Not to worry. If you still have questions, the gentleman will answer it offline. Yeah? Thank you very much. Yeah, bye.